I think there are, if I look at it, I can't, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there's a new name or two on there, but I recognize most of these names that are playing for BH3 as we get into the draft up against YT.
Yeah, I believe BH3, I know their rosters changed a little bit throughout UCS this season, but for the most part, these are all strong, like solid members. They've been playing together. They've done well in their UCS in Europe. I mean, definitely a top 8 team, if not like a top 6, top 4 team in EU. So this should actually be a pretty like even matchup, I would say. Ping dependent might be in the favor of BH3. I'm not sure of the server rules necessarily here, but we're gonna get into these bans, mostly some tank support bans, and of course the horse. No play.
Not going to be allowed to play. I would be really surprised if we have a single game on broadcast that's allowing the horse. That is pretty much going to be a permanent ban that we'll see on our orange side consistently. But seeing the things that have been let through, Inteleon being that big one, I'm still surprised to see it this early. Miraidon's still a viable option as we see it locked in by BH3 Esports, and that's the only reason why I'm so surprised to see the Frog that early. But having Hoopa locked in too, I really like this as a support pick for any team. You were talking about that mobility that you get, getting you back to the Pokemon Center, heal up a little bit, back into the fight initially. And that's something that I'm expecting to see a lot more of these teams start to really ride through, especially with Psyduck and Blissey being permanently banned throughout.
Yeah, I would be surprised if those guys ever got let through. I love seeing Wrecker on this Absol. He's definitely known for it, so not surprised to see that one picked up so early and prioritized for Team YT. It also seems like Crustle is back in favor more. I don't feel like I've been seeing it this often in previous cups we've seen, but I feel like with the rise of Inteleon and Miraidon, Crustle plays pretty well into it, so always excited for Pika diffs. Crab, Mimikyu still a stronghold. I feel like it kind of has lost its like S super plus tier status, but still is favored with that shutdown unite move, and we're gonna see a Buzzwall from the side of YT.
A lot of early game there with that Buzzwall, and that surprised me. Ooh, Phalanx also getting locked in too by BH3. That one surprises me more. I mean, everyone remembers when Phalanx was first introduced how powerful they were. That the what is it, quintet, I guess is what you can call them.
Yeah, there's 5.
Because it's not a quartet, it's a quintet, I think. So it's all 5 of them and how they line up and how powerful they were for a long time, then got the round after round after round of nerf. So seeing them kind of pulled back in this one, I kind of like as a good diving force that can get into this backline, especially looking at the Inteleon. You have the Mimikyu to shut down either the Inteleon or the Absol. That's something we were kind of talking about, but the Buzzwall is going to be difficult. If this Buzzwall can do what Buzzwall does best, which is get early game leads for the team, that can be that bridge that gets Inteleon into the late game and makes them that formidable force and the reason why you lock in that Mon in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and Inteleon really doesn't have the worst early game of all time. It's secure with Water Gun. It's still super solid for that early path phase that it usually has to endure. It is not a jungle mon by any means. I'm sure we will most likely see Wrecker in there to start off with, so pretty exciting. Yeah, I'm not sure the favoring over Inteleon versus Miraidon. I'm not sure. I feel like most attacker players like Inteleon more, and you do get that utility of having to use Snipe Shot versus Liquidation. Obviously, Miraidon, you have that choice as well, but it feels like there's just a bit more opportunity with Inteleon's moves.
I will say, as I know how Inteleon players tend to see things, it is more fun to land a Snipe Shot as opposed to a charge beam.
Like, I agree. I'm like, I don't want to say that's better. It, but I think that's it.
You feel so much more powerful when you land a Snipe Shot as opposed to landing a charge beam. Charge beam, very easy to land. It's something that's going to do a lot of consistent damage, while Snipe Shot, a little bit more difficult, but when you land them, you feel like you're a great player and you're absolutely carrying the team, but we did see that little bit of damage that you get early on when you have the Thunder Shock for Miraidon, pretty much the early charge beam that enables them to get these early lead spot paths.
Yeah, we actually saw a pretty early KO from the side of BH3 in that bot path. So really nice early KO for that Miraidon. You can see he has quite a lot of money in his pocket, and Miraidon is one who you kind of want a lot of coins in your purse to charge up your moves and do that extra damage you get from having those points involved. YT putting a lot of resources in this top path, and it is going to pay off as they start to get these KOs and push towards this goal zone.
They gotta be careful because there's the push back. They're getting these evolutions and finding another knockout. Eldegoss taken down as what it was that initial knockout for Team YT. BH3 were able to battle back and take to themselves.
Yeah. Honestly, BH3 was a pretty strong start. Oh, and it looks like we're going to be playing Trick Hoopa on the side of BH3, which we definitely don't see a lot of, but I love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I absolutely love it. I'm trying to look for like the synergies among their team. Maybe it's the Phalanx technology, because that is not a guy we see a lot, as Wrecker shuts down this Trevenant trying to invade his jungle by the looks of it, to no avail.
Also, I was wrong. It is 6 for failing.
Oh,
not 5.
6.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, it was my fault on that one. I got the numbers wrong. Miscounted.
He has 5 kids. It's confusing.
Exactly. But right now, about to go back to the Pokemon Center with all 5 of them. So they are not having the best time in this jungle, as right now it is the Mimikyu who's having a great time. Japa was able to find a double knockout, but we go to the top path where Trevenant barely escapes with the help of that eject button, and giving a little bit of power back to Team YT, especially looking at that Buzzball, level 7, but Miraidon also at that same level. Can be difficult to deal with now that they hit level 8, taking down the bees, as the Buzzball was not able to get the damage back, and they just dash right past them. We are going to attack you, but it's going to be the slam down from Buzzball that helps Absol pick up the knockout as they look for Phalanx. Has the shield, so the chase is there, and instead of having that chase continue, Hoopa saves their life, but no, they go even further, using Absol to try to dive underneath with the Wood Hammer, not doing nearly enough, and now Eldegoss going to be the one they attack, trying to heal back up, while Buzzball had been attacking the Regieleki that entire time. Another Wood Hammer to lock down the Buzzball, so Phalanx will pick up a knockout.
Wow, yeah, an interesting little back and forth in this top path. It looks like BH3 is going to try to go for the Seleki. Yeah, he's going to be regaining some of that HP. In theory, they should have it up there, but, okay, they KO'd the LD. Good choice. Don't really want to risk that falling to the wayside. BH3 is also going for this bottom objective as well. They have a really good control of this map right now.
Yeah, and though they always got to be careful that Inteleon always going to have a lot of consistent damage that we see, and same with the Buzzball that was able to take down the Phalanx, but that is going to be the meteors that were launched into the bot path to try to help and secure that Registeel, but it's going to be Team YT that wrestle the control away from BH3, dunking a lot of points right in the face of Hoopa.
Yeah, I feel like they took some time to kind of like get their levels, make a decision on where the priority was going. They kind of gave up, I guess, on that top objective for the most part to get their jungle and get down in this bot path, and it was definitely worth it. They are able to have this point lead. I'm looking at the levels right now. It's like mostly even, YT with a little bit of favor on that Absol, and now the Buzzwall getting their level 11 as well. Looks like BH3 is going to be moving toward this top goal zone. Good Shadow Sneak onto the Eldegoss by the Mimikyu, but oh, the punish for it is massive. 2 down on the side of BH3. It looks like there's more to come.
No retreat, try to stay in that fight, but Phalanx struggling. Same with the Trevenant. Even if it's a nice Wood Hammer, it's going to be the double knockout for Inteleon as well. Phalanx, realizing the danger they are in, just decide to destroy the pad, even if they fall.
Yeah, I was really curious about this Phalanx pick. It is not one a lot of people like. Really, the only other team I've seen use Phalanx at all since its nerf into the ground is Kiss Kiss from NA, so was excited to see kind of what EU is doing with it, and it doesn't look bad necessarily. All-arounder role is just so saturated. It's kind of hard to pick Phalanx over literally maybe anything else.
Right, and that I think that's kind of like the big doom for me when it comes to Phalanx is that there are just so many other viable options right now. It's not like it was before, where it was the premier all-rounder, as we even see right there, another one of those strong all-rounders being Buzzball, where you have that early game that if you get that lead, can lead you into the late game. In the bot path, BH3 are trying to make another play. The Registeel that they're trying to secure, but the Rebel Rouser almost does steal it away. Right in the face of BH3. I don't know how he's able to do that. Pika dip, showing the dip with a Crustle, allowing the team to show him into the bot path to get the knockouts on a BH3 double for Inteleon. Huge lead all off the back of this Crustle. Pika dip tearing the team through that fight.
I've always loved Pikachu on this Crustle, and that is definitely why. Obviously, tank and most support mons get that kind of additional damage onto those NPC mons like Rayquaza. Pikachu just said, okay, I'm just gonna ult and auto attack and see what happens, and that's all you really gotta do sometimes. Really, really great stuff from the defense player of Team YT. Phalanx ulting to no avail. That was kind of a head scratcher for me.
I think it was a desperation Dust Devil formation. It was hoping that there was going to be enough damage and maybe enough support to keep the Phalanx alive long enough, but we are seeing the issue when it comes to Phalanx is that you have no retreat formation, and then they get past you and you're still taking all that damage.
Yeah, Miraidon as well utilized its Unite move in that push. I mean, I guess at that point, if you do get a KO on the other team, it is probably worth using the Unite move for those levels. And then if you get KO'd yourself, you do kind of get that bump in your Unite charge when you are KO'd. So tactical death, surely a tactical death as we set up for this Rayquaza fight.
Did you see that snipe shot and how much damage it did to the Miraidon there?
I pretended not to see it.
Yeah. One snipe shot took him down to 25% health.
Just good.
Full health to 25. This is scary. This is why we were talking about why a lot of our pro players love playing Inteleon, because when you land those snipe shots, you feel so good. It is so satisfying, that damage that you're able to provide for the team. As right now, the Rock Tomb doing a lot. The Meteors are slamming down in the forest there too, but nobody has fallen just yet. They're looking for the dive onto Mimikyu, taking out a 1-for-1 trade because they lost Hoopa on the other side, but the Speedster's gone. Nihil retreat, trying to defend the best they can, but the Rebel Rouser is doing a lot of damage. Dust Devil formation, but had to get out of there, leaving the Miraidon completely alone while they get the Inteleon on the other side. It is a close battle. Phalanx getting a lot of the attention. No retreat, surviving a long time, but does eventually fall. But now that the team of BH3 are able to rotate around, they're scaring off the tanks, trying to go for that Rayquaza, but Eldegoss is on the other side. A Kilo could help to steal this. It's down to 50. Buzzwell's got to get in there, try to defend, get some damage, and they are able to at least get him out of the pit. Or they got it secured. Who gets it? Buzzwall! What? YT are able to take that down, and they take down BH3 along with it.
Wow, I mean, honestly, the Mimikyu was kind of cooking in that Ray fight. They were able to get a lot of picks. It just, I don't know if they weren't able to burn down the Rayquaza in enough time or kind of made the choice not to, but BH3 did not have any Unite moves left, whereas Absol and Inteleon both had theirs on the side of YT, so obviously they don't necessarily have that information. If they're paying attention, they probably should know that as a team, that they still have Unite moves left and it is not looking good. We should just rip this thing before they get back, but man, support diff, which I think is Lunier, able to clutch it up on that Buzzwall. Of course, of all the things on the screen to get the secure, it's Buzzwall, one of the guys who probably has one of the toughest times securing if you don't have someone to pick up and slam down on it. So really, really good stuff from YT. They clutched it up. It was kind of reminiscent of that first game from Nouns, where it was looking a little shaky during that Rayquaza fight, but they were able to get that secure, unlike Nouns in their game one, but they still ended up winning. It was fine.
Like for BH3, I understand too why they turned to try to rip the Rayquaza, because Inteleon's gone. That's the big target that you really are worried about when it comes to fighting in Rayquaza, is if you're going to get hit by these type shots. You took out the attacker. Go for the Rayquaza. But as you talked about, you're still having to worry about the other members that remain for YT. Buzzwall might not be good at securing an objective, but great at securing these knockouts and having good lockdown for the fight. Then you have a Crustle that is right alongside him. That is actually pretty good at helping to secure some of those objectives that BH3 sadly just weren't able to rip quick enough to keep YT from entering the pit and stealing that away from them when BH3 had done such a good job of getting themselves into that position in the first place.
Yeah, and I did really like these kind of more unique draft picks on the side of BH3, and I don't think they necessarily weren't working, but it did feel like at the end there, they were getting punished pretty hard from Pikachu, especially with those rock tombs that he was throwing up with Crustle. He was catching a lot of people in them, setting up some really big picks for his teammates. Not even getting KO'd, he was able to get low on that HP bar, escape, and come back in. So some really good setup strategies from the side of YT, which I think really helped them during that Ray fight when the Mimikyu kind of was, had the chance to keep snowballing that fight for sure.
Got very close to being the Mimikyu diff that we were seeing in that one. And this is where it's like, I don't want to continue to harp on this, but I feel like anything else besides the Phalanx there would have allowed them to win. Like the Phalanx did a good job of kind of getting a, being a distraction for both the Crustle and the Buzzwole. Put a lot of attention to try to take the Phalanx down because that is something you have to worry about with that all-rounder. If you don't focus on this Phalanx early, especially when they're in no retreat form, then suddenly they're coming in with the Dust Devil formation. They're doing a lot of AoE damage that's gonna rip through a lot of the team members for YT. But this is where I then wonder what, like, there's the Aegis Slash that we saw brought out before by now, and Ghatlue looking really good on that. That is something that has been more in the meta. Even a Garchomp, I think, in that position could have been better. I mean, this is really digging down, but if you want to go for a Gyarados, I feel like even Gyarados, their dive potential that they have as a Pokemon would have really helped out with some of these fights too.
Yeah, honestly, good call on all of this. I am a little surprised we didn't see the Garchomp because I feel like especially in that early laning phase, honestly, the utility of Garchomp isn't too bad, and I feel like its level 5 spike is a bit more impactful than Phalanx level 5 spike, so something to consider. I will be interested in seeing how these teams pivot their drafts going forward and kind of just whatever they're cooking up, because BH3 did have some fun strategies, so hoping to see more as we get into this game 2 draft.
And that's why I didn't want to like continue to harp on it and be like, it's purely because this Phalanx pick. I think there were other issues that were unfolding for BH3 in that game in the first place, and it wasn't just based off this one. But I feel like a couple of other options might have helped them pick up when those mistakes were happening that could have allowed them that victory when they were starting to win at the Rayquaza. But of course, it's one of those, hindsight is 2020, right? You look in the past, you're like, I totally know what they could have done, but in the moment, you're not really as certain as you are like with these bands that are definitely certain. Umbreon, Psyduck, Galarian, Rapidash, Blissey. Those are 4 that we will pretty much expect permanently on the bench throughout the tournament.
Yeah, and it seems like first pick is the priority, because if you get first pick, you can get the Centellion, which I'm quickly realizing is the favorite among, it seems like every region thus far. Every region I've seen so far today, which is 2, I think. So,
which means every region.
I think that means all of them.
Ooh, Mamoswine locked in here for YT. Not the Crustle early on, but I like Mamoswine. I think that is a really solid defender that is really good at catching members out and disrupting identities that compositions really need to rely on, such as having things like that Inteleon. Mamoswine is actually good at getting into the back line and locking down a singular target, such as an Inteleon.
Yeah, and it is kind of similar to Crustle in that it's like early laning phase, like pre-evolutions, is still super strong. So you can kind of pair it with something that maybe doesn't have as great of a laning phase early on and still probably dominate your lane when you have something like a Mamo or even a Crustle early game like we saw last time beside you. BH3 picking up that Ho-Oh pretty quickly too. I guess Ho-Oh is so back.
Yeah, Ho-Oh's back, and another bird's back, dude. Talonflame locked in
Nice.
by Reeker. A little surprised by that one, just because Absol, we saw that last game. It wasn't the pop-off performance, was definitely doing well, though, for the team, for Team YT. But we're looking at these things that can dive past the Ho-Oh, get onto Inteleon, and add in an Aegislash. Why don't you? Something that is going to be great at getting on top of that frog. You're not going to be too stealthy when you try to get away from them, but now you look at what is being brought by YT and then what is being brought by BH3. I like this difference. Even though the Mimikyu, I think, was still worthwhile for BH3 to take, Urshifu and Metagross, I think, have a more solid identity for the team. That even if you are focused on the Centellion, that means now you're forgetting about the Metagross, you're forgetting about the Urshifu that are able to dive into your backline and do just the same.
Yeah, I do like the adjustments from BH3. The only thing I'm a little worried about was I saw no full heals on that team, and they are playing into a Mamo, a Buzzwole, an Aegislash. They have quite a bit of stuns on the side of YT, which for such a brawly comp from BH3, I am scared. I like the Metagross pick. I think Metagross is a bit of a sleeper pick. I know it's a little more niche, but I do feel like the shields provide some really unique utility. So excited to see what it can do, especially into stuff like a Buzzwole and a Aegislash. Oh, it's a scary comp, I can't lie, but excited to see how these teams play around each other.
But this is kind of what we were asking for from BH3. The Phalanx, fun to see, but not very powerful right now. We wanted something that was a little bit more brawl heavy in these later game team fights. Metagross is that. Even if it's more of a sleeper pick, we aren't seeing it quite in the meta anymore. I think it's still a viable option, especially with how we saw the fights unfolding in game 2. So BH3, they have these ways to get into these late game fights and be very powerful, even if they fall behind early. But as you mentioned, there's a Buzzwole on the other side, great early game. Aegislash, great mid and late game. Mamoswine, amazing late game. And then to top it all off, you have to worry about a Talonflame diving into your backline.
Yeah, it is a lot to manage from both sides. Aquilo on that Hoopa trying to get a red buff was able to kind of distract the Eldegoss for a while and is able to escape, not letting himself get KO'd, which I know he didn't get the buff, but he wasted some time. He didn't, you know, get KO'd. Pretty solid stuff on the side of YT. They have 3 in this top path already. Bagon going down while their Urshifu was farming that back ball toy.
I think it's okay, but the problem is going to be right here when you have to deal with the Blade that is diving and trying to defend the Altaria camp to get a lot of damage onto that Urshifu that shows up only to get knocked out by Hoopa of all things. This is going to be quite the commanding lead for Team YT in the top path. We're now dunking all these points in the face of Beldum.
Yeah, and now that they got that kind of early KO on Beldum, it kind of starts that rippling effect where people are just kind of trickling in, and it allows YG to pretty much always have the numbers and pretty much guarantee a KO, but things not looking much better in this bot path with the Drizzile going down to the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is kind of pushing in deep, maybe trying to get some stacks off or some points on the board. Hopefully he's able to escape down there, as we still have Beldum in this top path, which is not quite what you want to see. And the Eldegoss as well. Our power spikes are missing a little bit.
Yeah, this is getting difficult for BH3. I'm a little worried. Like I said, they have late game options. They can scale. They are very scary, even if they fall behind in the late game. But you gotta get there in the first place, and a Beldum ain't it. Level 4 for Beldum, now evolving that Glossifleur into Eldegoss, but still level 4 when you look at the levels on the other side. It is scary. Level 7 just hit, so Talonflame, the Flesh Cinder has just evolved into Talonflame. You have that Buzzwole to deal with. Aegislash is there as well, showing up in the bot path and getting a lot of damage right there on to our Dark Bear, who had to eject button away. Picks up some fruit, but they are continuing that dive. Saying no more Bear. We're not even dealing with that one. You're in hibernation, while the Frog might have escaped and looked for a little bit of damage onto the Talonflame. Bot path is being dominated by Team YT.
Yeah, I love that Wrecker on this talent play decided to go Brave Bird. That is definitely not the moveset I typically see on this little bird guy. Great secure from the side of Aegislash on YT, getting that bottom objective as well. BH3 has a lot of team members. They shouldn't have talked. There are not a lot of team members down. They all got KO'd by Aegislash. Oh my gosh.
I'm sad to say I saw that coming. I'm like, I've seen an Aegislash do this too many times where you're like, it's the meme, right? It's call an ambulance, but not for me. That's Aegislash right there. It's like, I might be low health, but I can still fight. If I have more than 1 HP, I'm good to go. And unfortunately for BH3, they got caught up in that one. And now Team YT, this snowball is turning into an avalanche.
Yeah, 200 points on the board already for Team YT versus 7 on the side of BH3. It's starting to look like maybe these picks were not quite the juice that BH3 needed. It looks like they're even going to try and push this Alecki into the tier 2 Buzzwall Aegislash combo, looking a bit unstoppable to me at this point in the game.
And just look at this, diving into the flux zone to make sure the team's getting every point possible off of that Regieleki. Well, yes, they are going to be punished for their hubris and give something back to BH3. Look at how long they have to go just to get to the top pad. It's such a far distance, and while they have 40 points, sure, this could be enough time for Team YT to regroup as they try to defend, but it's only a Mammoth Swine. It's going to be difficult. Mammoth Mash tries to dive into the back line, but the compute crash helping out a little bit, but it's going to be the turnaround. They get one knockout. Hoops are unbound, and the powerhouse Team YT punish BH3, destroying them in the top half.
Wow, I really thought that 5-man push was going to be pretty effective, but the Kilo is gaming on this Hoopa. I'm really impressed with the macro he's able to enable for this team. YT getting to take out that tier 2 goal zone, which I was really commending BH3 for being able to stop that initially, but YT said, no, don't worry about it, we'll go right back. And now it's gone with another Alecki spawning here shortly.
And you even see that the entire time this top lane play was happening, that another Raichu was taken by Team YT. It is looking nigh impossible for BH3 to win this one, but I mean, as every Pokemon Unite player will always say, if there's a Ray, there's a way, and maybe they can wait for that to be their play, but you gotta get there in the first place. You have 2 minutes to somehow survive this onslaught of Team YT.
Yeah, and this top objective is looking pretty scary for BH3. Honestly, great Aegislash ult, but was not quite enough to get the KO on the Inteleon, unfortunately. That's some good XP going toward that Intel. It is definitely needed. I mean, the levels of the carries aren't looking too bad. Our supports on the side of BH3 are definitely behind, and this Alecki walking toward home base is not going to help their cause very much.
No, but if they're able to pick up these knockouts onto things like the Talon Flame, it can start to turn things around. You gotta be careful if you're Team YT. Yes, you have the advantage. You are in the lead, but if you start to throw too many of these advantages away, like getting picked off right here as the Buzzwall a little bit behind where the Aegislash can show up, this could be the turnaround point for BH3 because Metagross is here. The evolution was there for quite some time, and that is something you're now going to have to deal with, is worrying about those Metagross cleaning up every one of these fights.
Yeah, those picks were definitely super helpful for the side of BH3. I like that they kind of let that Alecki pretty much get toward their goal zone, left the Ho-Oh to hold it for a while they tried to make a push toward this top goal zone. It does not seem like Team YT wants to let this goal zone go at all. They've denied a lot of points. BH3 only has 15 points scored in this entire game, and if there's any mons that need stacks, or I mean points do kind of win you the game, it is not looking good for BH3 on that scoreboard.
But I will say the thing that is going to be the saving grace here for BH3 is there is a level 4 team for Team YT. but it's not the Aegis nor the Talonflame. It is the Buzzwole, something that does start to fall off at this point, and you are having 3 level 13s as well. This is why they can turn it around on Mammothswine, getting a lot of damage to the backline. There's the Aegis gone. Buzzwole was too late to the party. While Compute and Crush actually locked in the team into the Thunderdome, it has given them control of the Rayquaza. They are on top of it. They gotta be careful because Talonflame was looking for the backline, was not able to get onto the Inteleon. The dive in, doing a lot of damage, but still, it's gonna be the secure going over to BH3. Rayquaza's their way back into this one as Ho-Oh flies their way into the bot path. Will be able to dunk in a nice hundo burger right there in the face of Team YT. And guess who's back in, down only 6 points.
BH3 with a very nice Rayquaza fight, getting that pick on, I believe it was Mammothswine, pretty much right before that Rayquaza pit started. BH3 knew that they had to put pressure on that Rayquaza, and they needed to lose, if possible, no team members, which they were able to do because they knew they were behind so many points. If they let YT get those KOs before or after Rayquaza had been taken, it was also not looking good for them, but they were able to, I think every single team member dunked because they have about over 500 points now at this point.
They got a lot of hundo burgers dunked in there. So they not only are taking this lead, but now they are in control of the game. YT, desperation with 35 seconds left on the clock, trying to get the fight to work out for them, but now is the power point for BH3. Then no more will we be bullied by you, Aegis. We take down the team, and they will secure Game 2 victory, getting us into a 3rd game.
Wow, really, really good Ray fight from BH3. I feel like throughout the game, they kind of seemed a little bit siloed as a team, kind of like getting picked off one by one, whereas YT was really good at kind of forming those circles, triangles around their targets and picking people off as a unit. But once BH3 got into that Ray pit, they were really, really running as a squad, which is what you want to see. You want to try to wait for that mistake from that other team. Someone goes a little too forward, someone's caught out a little bit. Also, the talent, like, you want the Unite moves to not go in favor of YT, and we did see the Talonflame not able to catch his target with its Unite move, so really, really solid last 2 minutes from BH3.
Like, we didn't talk about it in the moment, but Inteleon dodging away from so much of the attention from Team YT, because that's the whole identity of this team, right? You get a Buzzwole, you get a Talonflame to take Inteleon out of the fight. But Mifil was so good at disengaging and getting away, using that slingshot to get out of any damage that could have been thrown at them, or a couple crucial eject buttons to dodge away from things like Celestial's ult that we saw from the H slash beforehand, or even in that Rayquaza fight, how many times they try to dive to that Inteleon, but somehow barely they're able to escape.
Yeah, and as I kind of look at both of these teams' comms, sometimes I try to look at each team's Unite moves as a unit and see who has kind of like the biggest like disruptor or kind of painful Unite moves to deal with. And though YT does have things like Hoopa Unite, but for the most part, I feel like people would consider like Buzzwole and Aegis Slash Unites like a little underwhelming in terms of like...
True.
I mean, Aegis Slash is just like hard to hit, especially when you have people dashing around all over the place. So it's like ones that are like more high risk, high reward, I would say. And if they don't hit, you're kind of left at a loss during this last couple minutes, where Inteleon's Unite move, I feel like anything with a big AoE, I feel like can really help your cause. So great job by BH3 playing to that win con.
They played for the late game. That's kind of why I was talking about looking at their composition. I never really thought they were out. The only way I would be like, oh, the game is done and dusted is if they lose Rayquaza. That team composition is built to fight at Rayquaza. Metagross and Inteleon, disgusting at when it comes to not only securing the Rayquaza themselves, but also the amount of damage they can do into those AoE fights, as you were talking about, especially things like that Metagross that are so pivotal. You can put so much attention on getting Metagross behind early, but it's still Metagross late game. It's still going to be absolutely disgusting.
Very much, yeah. I don't even know if I saw. Sometimes I miss the Metagross Unite move if I don't get the big bowl in front of me. I know that only the walls only come up, I think, if you hit like 3 targets for Metagross Unite move. So I didn't even really see that guy. But I actually think Metagross Unite is better to be used kind of like as like an individual kill, because I feel like the bowl can hurt you as much as it may help you. So I prefer to see Metagrosses utilize it in that fashion. I think it plays a bit better for them. But we're going into our first, well, it's only round 2, but it's my first game 3 of the day. So
Yeah, exactly. I think we only had one in the first round of the Swiss that went to 3 games. And here we are getting another one into game 3, but we are seeing the same exact bands. Not one mon changing from the bench for either team. Like we said before, we're expecting that to be the same. Like I'm expecting that Inteleon to be the first pick for whatever team is on purple.
Yep, and there she goes. I see YT is first pick this time, so they get the lizard. That is a fair enough trade. BH3 locking in that Buzzwole pretty quickly too. Okay, I see you guys. Buzzwole pretty popular in this set we've been watching.
Yeah, I mean, not seeing any focus on it in the last one, but seeing a lot of it between YT and BH3. I'm a little surprised to see the Buzzwole here. Again, I like the Mimikyu that we saw in game 1 from BH3 when they were on orange side, but does seem that they are going more for the early game and taking a Mewtwo Y. Interesting. No Miraidon.
Okay.
Going
Yeah.
for Y. Definitely curious, and I'm excited to see how BH3 are going to utilize that.
Yeah, I feel like in the previous cup, it was pretty much Miraidon and Mewtwo Y everywhere. So,
Mhm.
not surprised to see Mewtwo Y kind of making a little bit of a comeback this week in our Unity Clash tourney. So, excited to see it in that bot path, I would imagine, as Pikachu once again plays a different defender in this game with that slow bro. Not one that gets a lot of love lately, but always has that shutdown unite move, always is going to be nice. And this time we're seeing Serena for YT and Venu on BH3.
Whoa. Okay, I mean, like you said, it's like the Mewtwo Y. We saw it being meta not too long ago. So yeah, you could expect it to maybe show up, even though we have seen it like really fall to the wayside because Inteleon has come back into the meta. But the Venu, now that one is really interesting to see because there are a couple of different paths you can go for with Venu. You can go for more of like a defender-ish, be more tank kind of Venu, or you could be the true attacker that you're always meant to be with a Solar Beam. So I'm really curious to see what they opt to go for. If they're going to try to match an Inteleon when it comes to the range game, or if they are going to be more of a defender and try to be a front line for the team so that they can then put all their priority into Mewtwo Y being the one that's doing damage from range.
Yeah, which I would imagine would be a good play because Mewtwo Y is a bit more mid-range, I would say, as far as our current meta attackers go. It looked like the Venusaur had the eject button on it, so I would imagine that it's going to be that Solar Beam, which
Right.
I would kind of love to see. I feel like it is one of the only other attackers that can match Inteleon in its snapshot range, so...
But it's like not as consistent. That's my biggest problem. Like Inteleon gets to throw those snapshots out like every couple seconds, and it's
Yes.
almost oppressive when you get to the late game. But Solar Beam, I think, packs just as powerful of a punch. So in game 3, we'll see how BH3 are going to be able to utilize that Venu like you're talking about, Bridget.
Yeah, game 3. I'm pretty excited. This is also, I feel like, the first time we've seen Wrecker on a all-rounder, not a speedster for Team YT. So excited to see what he's cooking on this Serena, who's kind of a controversial pick, I would say.
Isn't Serena just a speedster but in disguise? You know,
I'm pretty sure that's
like.
Wrecker.
I'm just saying. I think
Maybe
Serena. Yeah, I know. It's hard to read sometimes the names on this, which is why it's like
trying to look.
like sometimes I just
think
go
that's
with them
Linear
on.
on Serena, but
Yeah. Oh, is it?
beside
Okay.
the point.
But
Wrecker,
besides the
there's
point,
no speedsters on YT. He has to be playing an all-rounder, one of them.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and then you can make an argument if they're on Urshifu, if you go for, oh, it's going to be Dark Bear. Okay, so not going to be, I was like, if it's Water Bear, then it is a speedster. So it's like, it's
No
the same
pseudo
thing.
speedsters.
But no pseudo speedsters, just going for actual all-rounders with a nice punch there. I think securing it all for Urshifu.
Yeah, some pretty much the same strategies we've seen from these teams both times. YT leaving one other member down in the spot path. Sometimes we see them crash all 4 in that top path as Wrecker actually makes a quick transition down here just to steal maybe a piece of farm. No, he'll come back. He might punch. He's thinking about it, making some decisions. But yeah, you can see that Serena has quite a bit of money in its pocket, meaning Lumiere is getting a lot of points up in this top path. Hopefully is not stacking on that Serena, or else that would be kind of a red flag. But overall, pretty even thus far. We'll wait and see what happens during this middle fight for these birds, as it looks like both teams are making a dash for it.
They're going to contest it. It's going to be the Surf out, trying to keep away BH3, but Slowbro put themselves in a bad spot. So while we got a lot of the Altaria camps blocked in by YT, BH3 are cleaning up the knockouts in the mid path.
Yeah, and we are seeing that beam come out from the Venusaur. I know you were not very high on it at first, but they have been putting it in its jungle, so it's able to get those power spikes pretty quickly. If you remember that kind of Kanto starter buff they all got a couple of months ago, Venusaur definitely profited from that, but hasn't seen a lot of play. I do feel like, to your point, the tick damage on the beam and the cooldown just isn't quite the juice that is needed for the meta nowadays, but
Exactly.
it's looking good so far.
Hey, I mean, it will pump out damage. That is for sure. There's no arguments from me on that one. It's just how well is it going to match up against the Inteleon is the big question, especially when we get to these late game team fights, because those are the most important. BH3 put so much attention with their composition into winning late game, and it worked for them in game 2. But can they do so again in game 3, where YT have a composition that can match up a lot better against them, especially when you have fights that are early on going over to YT, as they are looking to dunk in a lot of the points in the top path and then look for the dive afterwards. But Zarina's pretty low, trying to dive away. Well, Trevenant takes out the Queen. It is going to be traded back with a snipe shot, finding a lot of damage for YT. And Celestial still on that Mewtwo Y, getting the autos, has gotten the triple, might be able to get one more. Eject button doesn't save their life. It's going to be back to the portal. They go and try once more to take out this Venusaur, but the damage being pumped out by the beast takes down Inteleon.
The Kilo with these portals is a demon. He completely saved his team there with that portal, dodging that Veno Unite entirely. One of the best parts of running Venusaur is that you might Unite move and Solar Beam combo. It is one of the biggest bursts of damage in this game that you can muster, and for a Kilo just to nullify it completely, it was maybe a bit of overkill on the side of the Venu, but he's probably running amp. You might as well let that thing rip.
And honestly, I think it might be overkill, but you need to do so to take out Inteleon, because that's what happens when you don't. You have to deal with the power that it brings into a lot of these team fights, especially if it's able to survive. So now that you're having another fight here in that top path, giving some opportunities back to BH3, I'm looking at that Venu. It's the same level as Inteleon, and this is where we really will see whether this Venusaur pick is truly able to match the likes of that Inteleon, or if maybe that Miraidon that we've been seeing as always the answer to Inteleon was really the pick they should have gone for.
Yeah, I mean, so far, I definitely don't think the Venu is the problem. Really nice beam on that Urshifu, but it looks like YT just has a bit more resources down for this bottom path. They have their whole entire team there, and BH3 only has 3 members there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Venu stealing that away. Wow. What a verdant anger right there to just steal that away right in the face of YT without ever putting themselves in danger. Huge props out to BH3. And there you go. starting to answer that question right there. That's why you take the Venusaur. You get great range that you can seal away, but unfortunately, the Mewtwo Y struggles up against an Urshifu, but we're going into the top path where Regieleki is started up by YT. They're still fighting the best they can. They've taken out Buzzwole, and Eldegoss completely bails out of that one, realizing there is no longer a fight for the Regieleki. It is going over to YT, because BH3 instead are putting a little bit more attention into the bot path from Trevenant.
Yeah, interesting kind of change up. I feel like YT was kind of prioritizing bot lane in these past few sets, whereas this time they've gotten both Alekis and BH3 has gotten both of those bottom lane objective. YT making an excellent push here on this tier 1 goal zone, but a lot of Unite moves coming out from both sides of the map. Oh, Mewtwo Unite got a lot of gamers, though. I think it is going in the favor of BH3 this time around.
Especially when you look at that Veno, relatively untouched through it all. So helping to take down that slow brawl while Inteleon had been chased away by Eldegoss and then finally finished off by Mewtwo Y. It was messy, but BH3, they find themselves the angle to keep their lead, even if it's relatively small. They hold on to that with a minute left until Rayquaza.
Yeah, honestly, this is the best BH3 has looked pre-Rayquaza. They even have the point lead. They even have the level lead with that Venusaur already at 13 and looking to get more as it's farming up their jungle right now. Well, some members of BH3 are going for this bottom objective. YT already has 4 members of its team there. This could be the Ray fight right here for this Regirock.
I think BH3 are just going to bail. They're going to hope for a steal, almost able to get that with that Solar Beam. So close to a second time stealing away a Reggie with Venusaur. But they make the proper call. Buzzwole has been pushing this entire time in the top path. They aren't grouped up together. They need the Buzzwole, even if it's late into the game. And this is when Buzzwole starts to fall off. You want all 5 grouped up, ready, and looking to dive onto Inteleon especially.
Yeah, it actually looks like YT has really good control of this central area. Trevenant getting a big chunk of its damage out from that snipe shot. Luckily, we have the Eldegoss pumping up those heals. I think is so valuable when you have such pokey comps like this. You are constantly trying to heal your team members up from those half HP bars like Hoopa is trying to do as well. Kind of a lot of poking so far, not a lot of engaging on the side of YT. They're taking their time.
Good call from them. You have Inteleon, might as well just see if you can chip at the health bars of the members of BH3, especially because Tarina this whole time has been pushing top path. That is going to be a Hundo Burger dunked in uncontested. BH3 now looking for the fight, getting a lot of damage onto the slow bro, but not enough to take him out as the force grows. They dive with Ultra Soul Slam on Inteleon. BH3 take the lead as now they try to fight once more, but with the hoops unbound, they got to be careful. Diving into the back line, looking for Urshifu. Leech Horn lands. They find the damage. They're taking out YT. And with only one remaining Tarina, the queen, to be taken down. They got to remove her, and then they got to take those dunks because they are now finding themselves behind Woodhammer. Lands on a Tarina as the flash forward. Almost takes out Tarina. Snipe shot, though, out of nowhere. YT back in the fight. Now they can look to see if they can defend the Rayquaza away from BH3.
Yeah, I like BH3 going for dunks on both sides of the map. Serena can only stop one of them. Actually, it doesn't even stop the Eldegoss. Wow, I actually thought Serena would definitely be able to get there in time for that engagement. The Ray is being ripped, though. Oh, Vino a little too early, and YT secures it. Do they have the time to dunk? It's looking pretty good for them. Oh, he's knocked up that tree.
Oh, there it is. They've got it. They've got it. Team YT, they take the Ray, and they find their way to victory in a 2-1 defeat. BH3 got to feel a little bit bad about that one because it was so close. And if they had just a little bit more time maybe in those fights to allow the Venusaur to get more damage, but I think YT made the proper call and how they're able to turn for that one. Celestial, especially on the Inteleon, was able to revive from the Pokemon Center, find that critical knockout on a Mewtwo Y, and then they could turn it towards the Rayquaza. I think BH3 were maybe just a little bit caught off by the fact that that respawn had been so quick out of Inteleon. But you gotta also keep in mind, those fights were really dragging on for quite a while. That gave the opportunity for the respawns and for the re-engage out of Inteleon.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, it really came down to that literal secure in the last like 20 seconds of the game. I thought BH3 was playing it really well, like you said. The Ray fight was kind of all over the place from both teams, but I loved the dunking that both team kind of like used to force engagements, like the Serena dunking at the start for Team YT to put them in the lead, and then the Eldegoss and the Trevenant dunking at the same time on both sides of the map, but that did give YT the opportunity to start that rip. I'm assuming it's YT who started hitting it. I don't think we had vision on necessarily who was hitting the big snake, but the Bimu was so close to that secure, but it's hard to match that Urshifu punch, unfortunately.